Alright, well, welcome to Dan's Crypto Adventures, but today's an odd video. This is will probably be a relatively short video. I'm getting ready to do some, build a housing for some rigs, and I discovered some damage to the sill plate for my house. So this video is about that. So this is Dan's Carpentry Adventures, I guess. As always though, I am not an expert. I am not a carpenter. I do work in the construction industry, but I would not consider myself a carpenter at all. So I can do a lot of the stuff, but it takes me a very long time compared to someone who does it all the time. And the quality is okay, but not as good as a true carpenter. So the issue that we're going to be fixing today, or starting today, is this up here. As you may or may not be able to see, the sill plate for the house is totally rotten. And so we're going to replace about an 8-foot section right here of that. So to do that, we do need to jack up the house just a little bit. You're not trying to raise the house back to where it was level. You're just trying to lift it up a little bit to get the pressure off of that board, so you can get that board out and get a new board in. But you're not trying to raise it back to where it was. Doing that can cause a lot of damage upstairs and elsewhere on the house. So what I'm going to do is I've got some 2x10s right here. I'm going to double them up and put them kind of running along the floor joist like this. Then I'll have 2 poles, one on each end, with a jack under them. So I've got some jacks right there I'm going to use. Now I'm going to set this up with 2 jacks. My experience is it's easier to have, my arm's getting tired. My experience is that it's easier to have the fewer number of jacks. The more you have, it's just kind of more to keep track of and more to jump around, and it's hard to keep things level and straight and that kind of thing. So it's just easier with the fewer number. So I'm going to use a double 2x10. They'll go to the underside of the joist, one on each, a jack on each end, jacking it up. So that's the intent. So right now I'm getting the 2x10s ready. I'd like to leave them full, width, but on this end right here I've got my tankless water heater, and so it won't fit between the bottom of that joist and this. So I do need to notch both of them just a little bit on this end. So, and it's only carrying that thinner area is only carrying that one joist, and so I don't think it'll be that big of a deal to do that. So I think it'll be okay. So first step is getting the 2x10s in place up in the air, up under there, and then some getting the jacks lined up, and I'll kind of come back on here and I'll probably shoot another little video showing starting to jack it up. So hang on. I forgot to add one thing. What we're doing here, this is a structural repair, and so you may or may not need a building permit wherever you live. So you need to kind of research that in your area. In my particular area where I live, you are required to have a building permit to modify anything that is structural, even if it is take out one board and put the same sized board back in, which is all that I'm doing here. But you are required to have a building permit for that. So you need to check around where you live to see if you are. I have no idea what the requirements are where you live. Also for me, I'm using a double 2x10, but I'm only going about 8 feet. And this is actually the last side of the house that I've not done. I've done 3 of the 4 sides of this house, so I know from experience, and when I did the first one I talked to an engineer about what size lumber I needed to use. This is not a permanent, this temporary support is not permanent. It's only going to be for a few days until I get the piece replaced, maybe even one day. And so it's plenty good for that, but it's up to you to make sure you size this for whatever needs to be this temporary support. You may need a 2x12, something larger. You may need more jacks than 2. I'm going to start with 2, see if it does it. I think it'll be fine. But anyway, when I've done some experience here, and I did speak to an engineer the first time that I did a section of this, so I'm confident this is sized accordingly. So it's not my fault. Sorry about all the random cut-ins, but I had to show something real quick. On this board here, I need to notch it out. So I've made a saw cut here and a saw cut here. Yes, I know it's not perfect, doesn't need to be. But you don't want to overcut. That does weaken the wood quite a bit, so you stop it short, and you don't go past the line, and then use a saw like this to get in here and kind of make that finish, that cut on both directions, so you can knock this piece of wood out. But raise your hand if you have kids. I picked this saw up and all the bolts are missing. So where the hell are the bolts? Anyway, I just had to show that. Raise your hand if you have kids, or if you have kids that are young, this is when they start playing with your tools, this is what they do. No idea where the screws have gone. I've had this thing for 30 years probably, and magically the screws are gone. Anyway, just had to show that. Alright, so let's do a quick update. So what we've got now is I've secured one 2x10 right there going all the way over. I only did one. I did not double them up yet. I do have the other one down here that I will put up next to that. These projects I try to do by myself. Yes, I have friends, but I hate asking people to help with that. Plus when you do, then they ask for your help, and I don't want to go work at somebody else's house for free. So I try to do these things by myself, and the way that I did it is this ladder, if you notice, is pretty close to where it needs to be. So I had this turned sideways. I had one end sitting on the ladder with a couple little shims under it, so it was, you know, pretty close to being touching the underside of the joist. And then on the other side, I went over there and worked. And what I did is I put one screw on each side right there that angles up into the joist. You can see it's touching right there, and then there's gaps. Here's a pretty big gap. That's about an inch gap right there. And then on the other side, so the other side then was resting on this ladder. Then I came over here and put one screw right there going on an angle into that joist. Remember, right now there's only two little screws, or 3-inch screws, holding that up. So don't stand under that. It could very easily fall. So you know, be clear of it. And then I got out my jacks. So I'm going to use 2 jacks, one right there, one right there. I did bring them in from the ends a little bit. I put down a few boards I had going in a crisscrossing manner. You want to try to spread out the load. You could crack the concrete. Again, in my case though, this is an old house, so that had the original concrete floor, and then someone, an owner prior to me, put a secondary concrete floor over the original. And I know that because I have a sump pump on the other side of the room over here, where you can see it. And so there's 6 or 8 inches of concrete under this whole floor, I believe. And so I don't have that problem here. But if you have a newer home, I guess even an older home, it's probably 3 or 4 inches of concrete. And so you got to be careful. You got to spread out that load because it could crack the concrete right around that. And so I like to put blocks. I wish I had some 2x10s, extra 2x10s that I could lay in crisscross pattern to spread the load out more, but all I've got is some 2x4s. So I've done it kind of on both sides. I got the, you know, this first jack is kind of lined up and level. Take the time to get it level. I did use shims to kind of shim up the boards. This flat surface here is perfectly level. And then also the jack, I took the time to make sure it was, the top of it was perfectly level. Then I cut the 4x4 post, put it on top, and then ran it up here to where it needs to be. So the next 2x10 will sit right here on top of that, and then I just cranked it up barely. It's barely touching that board up there. I could probably push up on this 2x10 and it would probably fall out, because that's just how light it is up against that for right now. And then now I'm going to put in the 4x4 on this side over here. Do the same thing just so it's barely touching the underside of that 2x10. And then we'll look at the next step. So I have got the other, well, I've already gotten the other post in here. Right now it's not lined up, and you'll see why in just a second. But I got it all lined up, you know, square, level, you know, plumb, everything is all good. I have put in the second 2x10. So they're both in there side by side. Now I say I put that in there like it was super easy. It was not. It took a while to get it in there. Again, I used this ladder on this end to support it. And then I was on this ladder on the other end trying to get it in. And like I said earlier, when I pushed up on the first 2x10, this post fell out. Luckily I caught it, and it actually made it easier to put together. So then I was able to hold kind of these together, you know, like this, and with my left hand, my right hand kind of wedge this up under there. So this is no longer you know, plumb, but it's under it, secured, and the 2x10 is in the right place. And the same with this side. This one's way out of plumb, but the important thing is I got the 2x10 up there, so that's the hard part right now. So now I'm going to go through here and put some screws, tying these two 2x10s together. there's not a whole lot of forces pulling those apart, so I really don't need that many screws. It's really just to keep one from falling out of my head while I'm working. So I'll probably only put 4 or 5 screws in it, maybe less than that. And then once I get those in, then I'll go back and re-plumb the 4x4s. So I'll get them kind of re-plumbed and lined up under everything. Alright. Alright, so great. So I got a couple screws and the 2x10s holding them together. I only did 2 because again, there's almost no forces pulling those apart. I just don't want one to accidentally fall off on my head. And once everything's under pressure, it's not going to go anywhere. Surely when I'm taking it down, I wouldn't want the second 2x10 to fall down. So I just put 2 screws in it, holding them together, and that's it. So now I've gone back and re-plumbed that 4x4 right there. So it's totally plumb. It is, you know, lined up, centered on these joists here, good. This one over here, I was plumbing it, and so this 4x4 right now is plumb, but that's a problem. You need to take the time now to make sure everything lines up correctly. It will be a nightmare later on if you don't. So this means I need to move the jack that way a little bit. Again, take the time now to do it. It'll make it easier later on. Alright, so I've got both of the 4x4s are adjusted. They're all totally plumb, all good. So we're ready to start jacking it up. Actually, we're not. 2 steps before that. I was trying to trick you. So one thing I pointed out earlier is the 2x10, it's touching that joist. That one there is probably an 1/8 of an inch gap. That's 3/4 inch, 1/4 inch, and then touching. So if I were to jack it up right now, that joist right there and that one would go up 1 inch before this 2x10 even touched these. That would be a big problem upstairs. There'd be, the floor could get messed up, there could be plaster damage, all kinds of things could happen. So I'm going to put some shims in here so that if I jack this board right here up, say, you know, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, everything goes up that same height, not just the 2 that it's touching right now. I want everything to move together. And again, I'm only going up a little bit. I'm only going up high enough so that I can get out. This board is blocking the light back there so you can't see. But I'm just trying to get it high enough so that you can get the sill plate out and a new one in. I'm not trying to go up any higher than that. So I'm going to do that. Put the shims in there so everything's tight. And then also, I'm going to be moving these joists. So I need to make sure there's nothing that's going to break or become a problem. And so for me, I've got a gas line right here. This yellow gas line which goes to the hot water heater. So this is flexible. So as that goes up, this right here will simply rise up with it. It moves, not a big deal. I've also got a water line right here. This is copper, but it changes to PEX right up here. And so again, this is flexible, so it can move with the joist moving, not an issue. I've also got a ductwork right here that feeds the level above us, but this is flex duct, and so it can move kind of with the moving joist as well. So I'm good with that. I don't need to disconnect anything, but you need to look around your area and see if there's anything that you need to disconnect that may become damaged or become a problem if it moves. So I'm going to put the shims in there, and then we'll look at what we need to do after that. I've got all the shims in place. Nothing, we verified nothing is going to be damaged when I raise the joist up. So now we are ready to start on the jacks and raising the joist a little bit. One thing though I like to do is kind of keep track of how high I'm raising it, because again, we don't want to go too high. And so that's a bit challenging because when you raise it up, there's nothing, you know, back there that you would be able to see to tell how high you went. Everything is just kind of mush back there. I'm not sure if you can see on the camera, but there's really no way to tell how high it went. And so the easiest thing to do is measure out here from the concrete to the bottom of the 2x10. And what I'll do is I'll write it right there on that 4x4 right there. And I'll do it on both sides. I'll do it on this side and this side over here. Because I do want to keep those, the height they go up the same. And so, again, concrete to the bottom of the 2x10. Just write it down right there. Same thing over there. So I'm gonna write that measurement down, and then I'm gonna start raising it. Now you do not want to raise, you want that beam to go up even. You don't want to do one side, other side, one side, other side. You don't want to do that. So we're gonna start over here, or actually it doesn't matter. We're gonna start over here, we're gonna do like one crank. We're gonna go, the way this thing, these jacks work is, you put this in here like so, and then you go, oops, and then you raise this up. That doesn't raise it, and when you push it down, that's when it raises. So I'm going to do one down motion on this side, and then I'll do the same thing over here. I'm just going to keep going back and forth. There's no way to do it simultaneously by myself. If there's two people, I would have one on each side so it went up together. But I'm just going to raise it just a little bit. So I'll do one here. I'm actually going to do two there, and then two there, and then two there. So it's going to go up a little bit higher, and then like this. But it's only going to be going a little bit at a time. So I'm going to do that, and just a warning, when you do this, there's going to be cracking and creaking and all kinds of weird noises. And actually for like a day, you might hear cracks and creaks. Remember, wood is, it slowly moves over time, so it will move. Things will kind of snap into place sometimes. So there will be some cracking and scary sounds. So just go slow and even, and it should be fine. Alright, so I'm going to write down my height right there, and on that one over there, and then I'm going to start, then I'll start jacking it up. Alright, so I've started jacking everything up. Right now both sides are up about a ½ inch from the concrete to the bottom of the beam right there. So both sides have gone up about a ½ inch. One thing I want to point out is, like I said before, to make sure you measure off the concrete to the bottom of the beam. I'm going to show you the reason right now. And that is, if you look in a cavity, you can see no evidence of movement of any kind. The joist is still sitting flat, underweight on the sill plate. And the sill plate, it's crushed, but over there where it's still solid, it's still sitting on the concrete. There's no separation. So when you're jacking it up, it's very difficult to tell from that area how much it has moved, which is why it's very important to measure from the concrete to the beam. So now I'm going to go outside and remove the siding. It's vinyl siding house. I'm going to remove the siding and the sheathing, wood sheathing that's in that area, so I can have access to that sill plate on the outside. And then I'll take a look at it and probably start pulling part of it out. Once I get some out, I'll decide if I need to raise this anymore. It might be fine where it is. Okay, so now we have got quite a bit done that time. It is jacked up about a ½ inch all around both sides, and I have taken off the siding and the sheathing on the outside. So now it is pretty much wide open. So let me get a view of it. So you can see straight out right there. So there's the sill plate back there, and there's the opening. And so each, it's out all the way across. So we'll go on the outside here in a second and take a better look at it. But so I got that out. I got the siding and sheathing off. The sill plate is still in place. But let's go outside and take a look at that. Okay, so we're now outside and we can take a look at what we've got here. So we've got the siding is off. So we've got, this is the vinyl siding that's here. Here's another siding that was put on the house at some point, and there's also wood siding as well. And then so this is the sill plate. This is the piece we're replacing. This is the joists, the floor joists that go back into the house. The temporary beam we put in there is supporting these. And so you can see the sill plate. It is severely damaged. I mean, I could probably grab on this and just pull that whole chunk out right there. It's pretty bad. So the next step is taking out that sill plate, but it's about 8:15 on a Saturday night, so I'm going to stop here and continue in the morning. But I'm pretty happy with the progress today. Alright, so here we are outside. So we've got the old sill plate out. It was extremely easy to get out. What I did is I made one vertical cut right in the right here, and then I made one right on each side of each joist, like this, all the way down. And it was extremely easy to cut it. And then I didn't need any tools at all. to get it out. I was able to just grab it and pull it out. It was quite simple. Once you do that, you need to look at the bottom of all the joists and make sure there's no nails on the bottom of it sticking out. There were some, so you'll need to either cut those off or pull those out, whatever is easier, because those will prevent the new piece of wood from going in as I knock things over. Alright, so there's the new treated 4x6 in my area. Wherever you have wood touching concrete, it must be treated. That's the code requirement. Again, where you are it may be different. Also, where you are, this may need to be mechanically fastened to the concrete. Where I am, it does not need to be. I'm going to use construction adhesive on the bottom side, and that is all that I'm going to have connecting it to the concrete wall. Yes, I have spoken to the building official about that, so we are good there. So let's I'm gonna start putting this in here. It's going to be a tight fit. I'm actually not sure that it'll fit in a couple places under the joist. Oh, and I have gone through and cleaned this up really well and knocked off any high spots. Use compressed air to get all the dust and dirt off of it, so it's pretty clean. So when I do put it in there with the adhesive, it'll adhere well. So let's start fitting it in, and I might need to trim the sill plate a little bit to fit under some of these joists. We'll just have to see kind of how that goes. Alright, so I'm back in the basement. I did take the new sill plate, get it up there. I'm actually going to have to shave it down some. I'm going to need to, so it sits in there like that. I'm going to need to take about 1/4 inch off so it fits under all of the joists. Even with it jacked up a little bit, it still will not fit in there. And so I'm going to get out my table saw and make that cut, and then hopefully it will fit in better. Alright, so I was inside getting ready to cut the full piece, and I was thinking, I hope it fits. But then I realized I had to cut about 6 inches off of the full 4x6 piece in order to get it to length, so to fit in here. So I had a 6-inch piece of the same material. So what I did instead was I took probably about 1/8 of an inch off of it. So now I'm going to walk around with this block to see if it fits under. Now I just did it a minute ago and it fit under some, but not all of them. That one it goes in, but yeah, that one goes in well. I might need to tap it in there with a sledgehammer when time comes, but it goes. So this one does not. It's pretty far off. This one does not. This one I might need to chisel the joist right there a little bit. It's not cut very well, so I might chisel it out so it fits. And then this one, the same. It's very close. Might need to chisel it out or you know, tap it in there gently with a 10-pound sledge. And then this one here, it fits under. So I think I'm going to try chiseling out some of these before I trim the whole piece down, because I want it to be as tight as possible. You know, I don't want there to be any room beneath it. I want it to be tight. So it should be difficult to get in there, because when you took down the joist inside, you know, this piece is going to compress some. So you want it to be pretty tight. So I'm going to get a chisel and chisel out a little bit on those and see if it helps. Okay, so I've got the sill plate in place now. So what I did is I chiseled out the joist a little bit, or the floor joist a little bit there, so it could fit in there, and put a pretty heavy amount of construction adhesive in there. I used an entire tube, one of the large tubes, and then put it in place. I did need to use the sledgehammer, a little mini sledge there. You do want it to be tight, so you do need to get it in there pretty well. I've got a few of these that the ends don't look too great. This is one, if you can see, it's bent quite a bit. So I'm going to add some blocks in there. So I'll hammer that in to help support it. I'll put a significant amount of glue here on the bottom and on this inside right here in the top to hold this in place. Then also put a couple screws in it once it's in there. I did kind of angle the top just a tiny bit, just so I get it started, and then once I get it in there, it'll be tight and good. So I'm gonna do that to a couple of these, and where it's needed. And then also while it's open to the outside, there's a couple places that you might want to go and insulate. For me, I've got this cavity right here that's going to be difficult to insulate from the inside. Most of it I'll do from the inside, but that will be very difficult. So I'll go ahead and get some spray foam and put that in there before I put the sheeting on, just to kind of get it while it's open. So that's it. So I think I'm going to kind of repair a couple of these joists here on the ends where they need it, and then I'll start. I will go around then with actually some spray foam and go underneath that line right there. Just want to get it up in there good, make sure no insects, small animals, that kind of thing can get in there. So again, take the time now to do it. Okay, so I've got the sill plate all in place, and I've got the blocks where I wanted them, with adhesive and construction adhesive in there. So here's kind of an example. So I've got the original, and then the block I put next to it. I kind of filled all the holes and nooks and crannies with construction adhesive because I had it anyway. This will also help as air stopping, so I went ahead and did that kind of on the ones that needed it. I just kind of finished all that. So the caulk is still hasn't set up totally. So I'd like to go ahead and release the pressure off of the jacks inside, so this goes back down, and then that way the adhesives will set up in the kind of the final resting position. So I'm going to go inside and drop this thing down, and you will hear some creaks and cracks and all kinds of things when you do that, but should be fine. So all right, so I took the pressure off of the temporary joist and the truss in the basement. And I forgot to say a couple of things. First off, when you do that, remember the way that I did these 4x4 posts that were sitting on top of that jack going up to the beam are not attached to anything. So when you take that pressure off, that 4x4 is going to fall out, as is the one that was over here. Also, the only thing, again, the way I did it, the only thing holding that 2x10 right there up is 2 screws going into toenailed into the joist, one on each end. And then there's 2 2x10s, and they're screwed together with 2 screws. And so in the process of jacking this up, any one or all of those screws could have broken. And so when you take those 4x4s out and the pressure off, that could fall. So again, do that very slowly. Make sure you're watching it as you take the pressure off. So I'm going to let this sit for a little while. Right now, I just measured it. It's still about 1/8 of an inch higher than when I started. That's from the concrete right there straight up to the bottom of that beam, and then the same thing over there right in that inside corner, straight up to that beam, which is where I measured before. So both sides are about 1/8 of an inch higher than originally. So I'm going to leave this here, probably settle this a little bit, I would guess. I'm probably going to grab lunch, and then after that I will do some spray foam on the outside. Some of those areas I showed you where I will not be able to insulate very well from the inside. So this is a good chance to go ahead and do that. And then also I'll start putting on the sheathing to get the outside closed up. So I'm gonna grab lunch and then take care of those couple items. Gotten all the spray foam installed, so all the cracks and creases and everything around that new piece of lumber and some of the adjacent pieces that were near it. I went ahead and did spray foam around all those to seal everything up. So let's go and take a quick look at that. Alright, so while the spray foam is setting up, I'm going to go ahead and take down these boards right here, and do a little cleanup real quick. Get some of the things out of my way, and then I'll start doing the sheathing on the outside. I need to run 3 6-inch pieces of ductwork out through that band right there, through the gap. So through that gap that's right there. It's actually about 1/2 inch or so short of allowing that. So I'm going to just kind of notch that 4x6 out a little bit with a reciprocating saw, so that kind of goes out. It's going to be kind of in the middle between the joists, so structurally it's not doing anything at all. It just, that way the 6-inch duct will fit better. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and take this down and do a general cleanup. And by then the spray foam should be set up enough so that I can trim off any excess, and then I'll be able to start on the sheathing. So clean up, notch the 4x6, then clean up the spray foam, then go on to the sheathing. Alright, so I'm going to be running some 3 6-inch vents through that cavity, which is called the band board, and there's not quite enough room in there. I need to trim out the 4x6, the sill plate, just a little bit. And so just to show you guys real quick, this is how when you buy the outside vent, it comes with a little section of ductwork that goes through that. Then you would tie into your ductwork, whatever you have inside the house. And so it comes flat like this, just to show you guys how to put it together. It is a little bit tricky. You have to kind of learn how to do it. It's really not that hard. So basically, you've got, I don't know if you can see this on camera, you got these little locking system on each end that will lock together. And the easiest way for me to do is kind of put it against my stomach, and then kind of, you're going to end up folding in half, like so. This is kind of hard to do in front of the camera. And then you kind of want to exaggerate. Let me push down the table. There we go. You want to exaggerate it locking together. So you want to do a real steep angle, push it in there, and then let it go flat like that. So there you have it. So now it is totally locked together all the way across. Now for this application, it's not that big of a deal, but I'm picky on some things like this. I'll probably go ahead and put some tape on this. Some of the foil tape, or if you're doing duct work for heating and cooling of a house, you'd actually want to do mastic on this. But for this, I'll just do foil tape on here just so it limits the leakage and kind of holds it together real tight. So this way I have this, I'll go outside and kind of mark where my these are going to go, and then I can trim the 4x6 as much as I need. So I'm going to go trace this, and then I'll cut that out some. Alright, let me give you guys a quick update. I am putting up the plywood over the outside, and here is the centerpiece of plywood where I'm going to have the holes for the ductwork to come out. And so there's going to be 3 holes. I've obviously got 2 of those in there now, got 1 more to go. And so here is how you assemble the vents. They come as a little kit. They're separate. You know, this is the outer part that you see on the outside. Then this is the tube once you get it all folded, like I showed you guys a little while ago. And then always put foil tape right there to help seal that seam. And what you do is these holes right here line up in here. So if you look at this piece, this side over here has holes, this side does not. So the side with holes is what clips into that. And so you have to, I won't be able to do this one-handed, but it just kind of goes in there like so, and you want that hole to line up with that clip right there. And then once that's done, it snaps into place. That is a little tricky to get it in there. It looks like this. And so it's all together. Now one thing I like about this vent is when it's open, so it'll be, you know, like this, so that rain runs down it, but when it's blowing it'll be open. When it's open, there's still a screen in there. So this will be running essentially all the time, but that screen, one of the animals going in there if for some reason it is off, or, you know, I don't know, if they were super cold, I guess they might want to go in there even if it's on. But that should keep out some animals and things. I'm actually pretty happy that has it. And so this one is together. I'm going to go around right here and put some of this foil tape as well. You know, I really want to focus as much air as possible coming in the filters that I do, and then going out through this. I don't want it going out anywhere else. Even that little hole right there, there's 4 or 5 of them around this. Over time, with, you know, 125, 150 degree air, could heat up my basement some more. So I'm going to do foil tape around this right here, and then these will be done. I need 3 of them, and then I need to cut 1 more hole, and then we'll install the plywood. Alright, so another thing I wanted to show you guys is that I've changed the outside vent where the airflow comes out. I've changed that to a different, just to a different hood. And so I've gone from the one I had to this right here. So you guys can pause it if you want to get a better look at the box. But here it is right here. So it'll be mounted into the wall like this. Now, one of the key differences to this is that this is pointing down, right? This is, so it'll mount to the wall like that. And so the difference is the air right here is pointing straight down as opposed to out with that other one. And so this, I'm not as worried about water coming in, that kind of thing. There's also a screen on the bottom, so animals can't go in. And so I know you can't see it in there, but there's actually a flapper that I've actually already taken out. And it mounts inside there like so. So when air blows out, this flapper goes up, and then air can then come out, but when air cannot go in with this piece in. And so this particular hood is designed where you can take this piece out, and now you've got a hood that can go in or out. So to me that seems, I'd rather mount these just because that gives me the option of later on, if I find I need to do something different or change it or whatever, I can have these go in or out. It just leaves it a little more variable. So these are the hoods I'm going to install. And I'll show you guys a picture on the outside of it being all done. Alright, so I have finished the vent hoods, and so let's take a look at the finished product. So here are the 3 vent hoods side by side, and again I do have room. I can put 3 more right there if I need to, but I'm going to start with this and see how it goes. So I got the new ones in, so these can exhaust air out or pull air in. So I'm going to start off with just straight exhaust, see how that goes. If I have issues with that, then I'll look at having some coming in and then some coming out. We'll just have to see kind of what happens. Alright, so we just got about this done. I'm very close to wrapping up. So we've got the siding on the outside is all put back up. We've got our 3 vents right here that go outside, and I have room for 3 more. I can put another one right there and 2 more right there. So I can have some additional ones when I need. The last thing I need to do is on the inside, and that is to insulate that space. This space is called the band board, and it's an area that's often overlooked in houses to properly insulate it. You also want to air seal it as well. You want to prevent any kind of air coming and going through that space. So the best way is to hire a company to come in and do spray foam. But for me, doing a small space, an 8-foot long section, that probably costs $1,000, $1,500 as a minimum charge, because they typically have to bring out a big old truck to do that. So the easiest way to do that is to use a can of spray foam and some rigid insulation. And so I have a piece over here. I'll show you what it is. So it's this right here. It's just a pink board. I think this is 1.5 inches thick. It comes a 1/2 inch thick, up to 2 inches thick. And so the easiest way to do it is to take a piece of that, cut it so that it fits up here in that square right there. So the board would be in there, like this, but pushed back. And then you spray foam and spray foam all the way around it. I'm not going to do that now. I'm not going to illustrate it because I want to do more of that than just this little area, and I'm not ready in those other areas yet to do it, and so it's easier for me to do it all at one time. But all you do is cut a rectangle that fits in that cavity. You want it to be a little bit smaller. It doesn't need to be pretty. It doesn't matter what it looks like. You just put it in there and then spray foam with the can spray foam just all the way around it. I use, it's called Great Stuff. There are some other manufacturers out there called Great Stuff, and then I use the big gap filler. Lowe's, Home Depot, any place like that is going to carry that. So you would do that in each cavity. Where I have the duct coming through those, I'll probably just spray foam all the way around that, so you could get a good air seal around that. And then that will be it. This project will be wrapped up. Now, one thing I did realize I forgot to show you was the jack. And so what I have is I have a bunch of these. This is Cobalt. So I think that used to be the Lowe's brand, I think. But there's definitely some more manufacturers out there. This particular one is a 12-ton. It's called a bottle jack. And basically, the little thing here screws up, and you can get some precise adjustment through that. This guy right here, you crank it like this, that makes it go up. This little piece right here is how you kind of activate it to rise and fall with this pumping. And then when you want it to release, you turn this right here, and that will cause it to come back down. So I have a bunch of those. I used 2 for this particular project, and that was more than enough for this. So thank you for watching this video. I do appreciate it. Remember, keep in mind, this is one way to do this project. Are there other ways to do this? Absolutely. Is this the best way to do it? Probably not. But this is the way that worked for me, and I've done this in several areas of this house with no trouble at all. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and thank you.